Hello, everybody. It is 1:55 p.m. Central Time on the 17th of November, 2020. It is Tuesday here in the United States. Hope you're doing well. We are here, of course, to talk about seismic events. And it's been a day since I did my last update. Took a day off yesterday. And let me know if it sounds okay on Twitch. We are live on Twitch, and we're going to record this and put it on YouTube as well. So just let me know, press 1 if it sounds okay on Twitch, guys. Again, if you're on YouTube, you're watching something recorded. All right, sounds good. All right, let's get a display capture turned on here so you can see what I see. And we're going to start over here in the West Pacific again. And this is where we normally start. This is where the energy starts down below the plates with our deep earthquakes. And the deep earthquakes are raised high off the globe so we can identify them easily here on Earthquake 3D. So we're going to start here on the letter D that stands for deep earthquakes. And we have a deep earthquake right next to it. Then spreading out in 2 directions down to New Zealand and out to the west. I should say 3 directions, but we'll start with these 2. The 3rd direction is all the way across the Pacific. But 2 main directions down south and over west and over to the west. All of our warned locations have been hit by somewhat significant activity. So next to New Caledonia, that was 2 days ago with that 5. Then Vanuatu got hit at the eastern Solomon Sea. Then the Solomon Sea itself got hit with a mid-range 5. And then going from that point over to the west, we had a new 6.0 earthquake. Well, it's marked as 5.9, but look at this new 6. It is sandwiched in between our 2 previous sets of earthquakes. We call that middle point a fulcrum point, where the 2 rings overlap of the 2 smaller earthquakes, and in the middle, we have our bigger event, 6.0, and another 6.0. Both 6 right on the dot at first. One, they kept at 6 right here in Philippines. The other, they took down to 5.9. But it's 2 6s going 2 directions, out and away from where our deep earthquakes have been occurring. And we had another new deep earthquake on our other letter D, which also stands for deep earthquake location. So both letter Ds have been hit by new deep 4s. 6s going out in 2 directions. Let me show you the directions on the plate boundary map from the USGS. The red lines here I show in every update going to the west and up to the north. What's this right here? 5.5, that's right. So over to the west, up to the north. 2 directions, out and away from the West Pacific. So let's follow it up to the north, and Japan was hit in the Ryukyu Islands, right next to Okinawa. The tiny island of Okinawa also add in a bunch of 4.0 and 5.0 activity right on the south coast of Taiwan, and over to the east, the Izu Ridge hit multiple times with multiple upper 4s to near 5s. We have a warning going in Tokyo for upper 5.0 activity to strike in the next couple days. I would say most likely by the end of this weekend. So going up to the north with this letter H-shape bend in the plate here, or the crack in the plate connecting between both plate boundaries. That's where Tokyo is, and that's where we have the warning going for an upper 5. We'll skip over Alaska for a second and jump all the way over into western China at the Taklamakan Desert is where we were yesterday, and that weird 6.3 earthquake that got reported by the Chinese agency and the Indian agencies, but nothing, again, pretty odd, nothing going on there now. So just a 4.8, that's it. But we have to take into account that there was possibly a 6 that just didn't get reported by the EMSC or USGS. Across Iran we go, and we're on the plate boundary with a 3.6. That's pretty low. Seismically speaking, again, we are on the plate boundary, which is the red line here, but size-wise, seismically speaking, that's really low. 3s, we've seen this go up into the 6 range, maybe even larger in the past year on the plate boundary down here in South Iran. So if we have a 6.3 here, I would expect that somewhere in Iran, most likely western Iran going into the Iraq border, we would see a new release, and I would expect a big increase down here between Crete and Cyprus. Now this is the previous earthquake location from a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, with our tsunami that happened here. Big earthquake and tsunami, biggest earthquake in years in Europe, and again, it created a tsunami in the Aegean Sea right there next to Turkey's coast. I think that's an island belonging to Greece, but they're right next to each other. We have a new warning going between the two islands, though. Let me show you the two islands. Crete here, Cyprus here, warning in the middle. Let me show you on the USGS plate boundary map. Crete here, Cyprus here, warning right at the bend of the plate boundary. Looks like a letter W shape. And the warning is for upper 5 activity as well. Mid to upper 5. What else is going on? Well, a new 2.7 just struck as I'm talking over here in eastern Romania, and a cluster of earthquakes going from Switzerland all the way down to the west-southwest to Gibraltar, down to the Canary Islands, and over off the western coast of Portugal and Spain. And you can see it's a spread of the same-sized earthquakes going across the whole area, going from, again, Central Europe down to Southwest Europe. And let me just show it to you on the plate boundary. Oh, I got a cat out there. I got to go take care of it because Duchess is not going to be able to hear that. She's outside. Oh, boy. Okay, I'll go take care of the cat in a second. Over to the west, plate boundary goes out to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And again, it's all 0s, 1s, 2s with a single 3 out to the Pinnacle tip west. So it's all the same-sized earthquakes. Once we get to the western tip, it all adds up. And it's about the same size that struck over in Eastern Europe. Which, what size was that? 2.7 to 3.1. So 3.1, 2.7 on one side, and a 2.6 and a 3.0 on the other. And that's heading out towards the Azores. And we have to remember there was a collapse here at the Canary Islands. That collapse of the mountain right next to La Palma. Back over to the east. Oh, and by the way, Greece Aegean Sea still is moving as well. So we're moving pretty heavy here, a bunch of smaller earthquakes, and then a bigger quake struck over in Greece. So while all these 2s and 3s can add up, we have a single 4.4 over on the western side. Western side of what? Western side of the Aegean Sea. Let me show you what's there. See where this orange dot is? See where the red line is? Look where it goes. Goes up to Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, Croatia, and eastern Italy on the plate boundary all the way up to Switzerland. I would expect, now that a new 4 is struck here, we should look between our sets of earthquakes. This is pretty much putting us in Albania. Now the size in Albania should, I think, be under 5.0, but that's still enough to cause damage. I hope I got that right. I want you to have a magnitude larger plan just in case. So if I'm looking for an upper 4... well, you do have to have a plan for near 6.0, just in case I'm underballing on this. So now let's jump across. Remember I told you there was 2 main directions, one down to New Zealand, the other over to the west. Oh, by the way, boy, I have all these by the ways. By the way, North New Zealand, something's going on at White Island, guys. Something's going on. I know it says in the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center that it's just resuspended ash from wind now, but that's like the 3rd excuse that they've come up with in the last 2 weeks for what's going on down at White Island. See, it says no new eruption, just resuspended ash. But the previous warnings earlier in the day was eruption at 2020, no new eruption, just resuspended ash. Last week they tried to say that the steam blast that happened that contained the volcanic ash was just a steam blast with ash in it. So something's going on there, and it's seismic activity, and there's ash, and there's steam, and they're trying to say it's not an eruption. I don't know why. I really don't know why. All I can tell you is that the volcano is right here in the middle of the catcher's mitt position in North Bay of Plenty, New Zealand. Kind of like a ball being caught in a catcher's mitt. The volcano's right in the middle of that bay. And it's the halfway point between our current sets of earthquakes, down to the south and up to the north, the volcano. If we were to go around the bends of the plate boundary, let me show it to you on the USGS plate boundary map one more time. Or not one more time, I didn't show it in this update. If you're a new viewer, you probably have never seen this. The red line that goes from up here all the way down to the fracture zone to the south, and the halfway point between the earthquake to the south and all the way to the north where the other earthquake is, that halfway point comes in right in North New Zealand, following that red line. Okay, so now let's go over to the Eastern Pacific. So we jump across the 3rd direction that the energy flows. Again, down to the south, New Zealand, that's one direction. Over to the west, which then branches up to Japan and over into Asia, that's direction 2. And direction 3 is directly across the Pacific Plate, following the plate boundary fracture zones. So the plate boundaries are the red lines I just showed you all the way around the planet. One more time here. There's the Pacific Plate and its plate boundaries. You see there's nothing marked on the USGS map at all going across the Pacific. But if you go look at my map, we have 2 giant arrows, one pointing to the north part of South America and one pointing down to the south. Going back to their plate boundary map, you see what's up to the north, and you see what's down to the south, which directions both of our giant arrows point. The reason we have arrows that point there is we see earthquakes come across this area on both sides of the arrows. 4.9, 1 currently, and I want to draw your attention to where it struck. Well, first of all, let's just call it a 5.0 earthquake, and this is the tiny island right here of Easter Island. It's like a speck on the map here on the north side of the arrow right there. That's Easter Island. But if you look really close, you'll see a fracture zone that goes up like a stair step or a lightning bolt up to the north and connects all the way into South Point of Central America. And you see it right here, of course. It's marked on the USGS plate boundary map. So energy comes up from below the plate over on this side with all those deep earthquakes I was just telling you about. It then spreads out across the plate, and there's something across the plate. Well, first of all, we have a little Leviathan there to indicate power coming up from the deep. My map maker animatronic put that on there for us. But over to the west, that's where the energy comes from, and you'll see these fracture zones that are east and west spaced. Again, the USGS map has absolutely nothing, but we go on to the NOAA topography map here, and you can clearly see they're almost like latitude on a map, equidistantly spaced all the way up to the North Pacific and all the way down here to where our earthquake is. Now you'll see it kind of makes a C-shaped, crescent-shaped bend that goes back up to the north. Let me back this out ever so slightly so maybe you can see this a little better. A C-shaped bend that goes up and meets with the Hawaiian Island chain. This undersea mount chain, these are all undersea volcanoes that go down around and meets into Peru in South America. So coming down and around, and then everything east of this line of undersea mount volcanoes has the equal spaced fracture zones all the way up to the north. Now you'll see the Hawaiian Island chain branches off of this and goes over to the east and dead ends in between 2 of our fracture zones that are east and west facing. Now those east and west facing fracture zones are like superhighways. When the energy is coming up on the underside of the plate, reaches those fracture zones that go all the way through the plate and spread across. And then once it gets over to the east, it hits this north-south facing fracture zone and divides the power. Hence we get earthquakes to the north and to the south. Kind of like a 2-arm scale where you're putting pressure on both sides of the scale at once. That middle point is where the energy builds and then it divides, following the weak points in the plate boundaries. So we should see a spread go down to the south following this fracture zone, and up to the north following the fracture zone, and then in the center, all 3, just like a 2-arm scale with a balance in the middle. And that's pretty much what's happened in the past several days. 5s came across last week and hit into South America. Think of it like this, and I've used this analogy many times, like a train coming across a bridge. Those fracture zones start to vibrate, and then when the train gets to the other side of the bridge, it runs into a mountain, and it derails and tries to go around the mountain, as opposed to hammering right through it. I mean, again, in a train versus a mountain, the mountain's going to win. So it should spread down to the south, and we have 5.0 incoming energy, which means something much larger, a full magnitude larger most likely, should be rolling into Chile in the next couple days. And we can determine where by looking at our middle points between our current sets of earthquake clusters. So it looks to me like we have 2 predominant clusters. One up on the north side of Chile, marked in a reddish color from yesterday, and one in a lighter color, which is down here in south and central Chile from today. So yesterday we were up here, today we're down here. I would look at the middle point between the 2. And that brings us right in here in north central Chile, at the 2 clusters where the rings overlap. Again, where the pinkish colored rings from a day ago and the lightish colored rings from last night and this morning let you know the area that's moving. But that's not the only spot that's going to get hit. That's just the spot to the south. The spot to the north is a giant open silent zone with volcanoes erupting in it. So for instance, right here in South Peru, we have Sabancaya volcano erupting. We also have Sanjay and Reventador both erupting here in Ecuador. Going up to the north, I have to go check the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center list just to see who else is on it for today. I mean, here's White Island again, just resuspended ash. Okay, Reventador in Ecuador, Fuego in Guatemala. I'll show you where that is. Sabancaya, I already mentioned in Peru, same with Reventador and Sanjay. Fuego again, Reventador again, Sanjay again, Sabancaya again. Kluchevskoy, up in the Kamchatka Peninsula in the far northwest Pacific, up by Alaska over west of it. Where else? Santa Guido. Santa Guido in Guatemala. Now that's two. That's Fuego and Santa Guido both going in Guatemala. Okay, we got to go look that up. Let me show you where that is. Hold on. Let's get the USGS plate boundary map back open. Here. This is Guatemala. And notice where we have our red lines again. I was just talking about down here on the south side and going down to the south in South America. Well, of course, when energy transfers across the Pacific, it tries to equally distribute out, goes up to the north, and it spreads out across the plate boundary and goes all the way over into the Eastern Caribbean, or it tries to. But there's a juncture point. That's here in Guatemala, where the two meet up, where the plate boundary meets here, the Nazca plate meets in over to the east, into the Caribbean plate. And the red line signifies the road on which the seismic pressure transfers. And right here, where the two meet, Santa Guido volcano just started erupting, and Fuego has been erupting. So Santa Guido's the new one on the list for this week, and that's two volcanoes erupting right here. Up to the north, Popocatépetl not really on the list very much in Mexico, and nothing across all of south portion of Central America. So for instance, Costa Rica had Turrialba volcano on the list almost every day for about a year. We haven't seen anything there at all. Down to the south, Nevado del Ruiz volcano has not been erupting, stopped erupting in Colombia. But then, like I said, we get down to Ecuador and we have Sanjay and Reventador. We get down to South Peru, we have Sabancaya. So the volcanic activity is centered where the seismic activity is on the north side, and I would expect this to transfer all over to the east. So look at it this way. We've got a bunch of 4.0 activity spread out across Central America. From central Mexico, 4.1, down to a 4.2 in South Mexico, to another 4.2 right at the Guatemala plate boundary intersection. We have a 4.6 down south next to Costa Rica, and a 4.8 all the way down here in Colombia. Now guess what? If you take the 4.1 plus the 4.2, we are at a 4.31. Adding in another 4.2, we're at a 4.5, and then we add in the other 4.6, and we're at a 4.76, or, just round it up, a 4.8. So, the 4.8, even though it struck first, is the cumulative total of everything that struck across Central America since last night and this morning. This struck first, the 4.8, then distribution across all of Central America. And it's going in the opposite direction than what we would normally see, which is, look which way our arrows point. But again, this one struck first. Then this one, I think. Let's see. 1309, 1404. Hold on. First this one, then this one, then this one. So, south, north, center. Going over to the east, we're going to add in the volcanoes. So the volcanoes, each eruption, I've said this 1,000 times before in previous updates, I equate each eruption to about a 5.0 earthquake because of the thousands of small earthquakes that accompany an eruption. They have a cumulative total, to me. No professional is going to agree with this. But we can add up the eruptions and add in the earthquake activity and transfer it over to the east of all this earthquake activity at Puerto Rico, and we can place a new mid-range 5 to be striking on the plate boundary, going back to the USGS plate boundary map, over here on the east side of the Caribbean within the next several days. That the cumulative total of everything across Central America will add up and transfer east. It won't just stop in the East Caribbean. We should also see a new 5-ish strike out here on our other letter X, or very close to it, down by Ascension Island. Since the area's already been saturated, I mean, check it out. X marks the spot got hit yesterday with a 4.9 to 5.0. So the area is saturated, and the Caribbean plate has that energy that comes across it on this side to the north, and it comes across from the south as well if a big push is coming in. And we know a big push is coming in. At least it's coming across to the south, 4.9. Do you think it's any coincidence that we have 4.9, 4.8 to 4.9, and 4.9 all the way across? It's not a coincidence. It's the same sized activity spread out on both sides. We should see a bigger release take place over on the east side. That's the east side of the Caribbean. I hope I got it right, and it's over east of Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico's been getting hit so much. Okay, continental United States. A lot of people always ask me, why do I get into the United States last? And I'm not just trying to get you to watch a full video. The energy starts in the West Pacific. You have to understand where it starts, which way it flows to first, which way it flows to second, and which way it finally flows to. Now, the energy finally flows into the United States following the arrows. You can see up in Alaska, for instance, it's all 4-ish range, just like the rest of the plate pretty much. 4s all the way around. 4.4, 4.1, 4.3, 4.3, and a 4.2. Again, they're all within a hair of a point of each other. And they're spread out across the plate boundary again. Let me go back to the red line map again. Spread out from the North Pacific over to the east, going down around towards Canada. Now, this gets us into something called the craton, the North American craton. Every plate is made up of cratons, which are just geologist words to describe the interior portions of sub-portions of plates. So energy goes into the edge of the plate, following the plate boundary, then goes into the craton edge, first the coastal plain, then into the deformed craton, which is marked in purple, then into the center portion of the craton, but it never quite makes it to the center of the center. The center is very rigid and thicker, if you will. The outside edge is bent and contorted. That allows for energy to flow around the craton as opposed to straight through it. Oh, hold on one second, guys. Okay, so now that you understand that, just on the basics on the craton, that energy flows in from the west coast, goes into the edge of the plate, and tries to make its way across the plate, going all the way down through the south and over to the east coast. Now look at the earthquakes in the past couple days. This is 2 days worth of earthquakes, and we're not looking, or are we? Hold on, let's wait for it to refresh. Come on now. We're waiting for the Europeans to update. There we go. So it's pretty obvious. We've got a lot of smaller earthquake activity going up to moderate, 3-ish range, all the way across the North American craton, going down through Texas, back up into the Midwest, and even up the East Coast. Now, we're going to start on the East Coast, and we're going to work our way over to the West Coast, because I issued a warning up here near Maine, New Brunswick, southeast Quebec, and now we're starting to see small earthquake activity take place up in Maine, southeast Quebec, right at the border region. Now look at the craton edge, and look where the earthquake is. It's going right out into the split of the plate that goes out here, and you see the split in the plate carries on onto the continental shelf. That's like, what do you think, 50 miles, 75 miles wide. That's not an area that's been dredged by people, guys. That's a fracture in the plate. This is also the spot where in 1929, a 7-point-something earthquake struck near 8. Maybe it was an 8. But it was a huge earthquake that caused a tsunami up here that killed 20 or 30 people in 1929, right there on the south tip of Newfoundland. But that's all on the edge of the craton. And then, of course, a day ago, we saw a new 2 strike over here at New Hampshire. But New Hampshire is just on the edge of the craton again. And you got to remember, we had our earthquake right here at Massachusetts, Rhode Island, right next to the rich guy's mansion. Straight up Great Gatsby's house. Now, down on the east coast of the United States, we get into those power line earthquakes at Sparta. Down here at South Carolina. Sorry, I almost called it North Carolina. South Carolina, right next to the U.S. Naval Weapons Facility. Weapons Storage Center, and the high voltage power lines there. So we need to go over to the west coast to ultimately figure out how much energy is coming in now over the past day and a half. Let's turn it up to 3.0 and greater. And even a person who's never looked at this before would understand that in the last 2 days, 48 hours, we've seen a lot of 3.0 range activity. It's marked on the map here all the way from the coast all the way over to Texas. And I've included in the 2.9s because they downgraded the 3s to 2.9s. But going across the plate, it's pretty obvious. It's going down through Texas, at least up into Oklahoma, and our biggest earthquake of the day in the last 2 days, striking right in the middle of Idaho, right in the middle of our arrow. Now, why do I have an arrow there? I've always had an arrow there since I've been doing this, and we figured out that energy was coming across from the West Coast and going over to the Midwest and dropping off the same-sized earthquakes within a hair of a point of each other all the way across the plate. So it's not that this 4.1 is causing this 3.5 and 2.9. It's that the 4.1, the 3.5, the 2.9, and the smaller earthquakes over on the East Coast, it's that they're all being caused by an inundating force of some kind of power that's coming into the plate and spreading across the plate, but taking a path of least resistance. And as it does that, it drops off earthquakes along the way, and what I think is a giant, basically standing wave. Let me show it to you this way. Now, I think this is happening underneath the plates over where our deep earthquakes in the West Pacific are happening. Those big, deep earthquakes that I showed you at the start of the video. I think there's a hammering action coming in on the underside of the plate over far away in the West Pacific. And then it's following the red lines that I've been showing you this whole update. And so first the hammer action takes place down in the magma, far down below, hammering into the underside of the rigid plate. But then the equal spaced earthquakes begin. And this is a wave tank containing a standing waves. And as the energy is put into the system, as this thing compresses, these two walls kind of compress into each other, it can form 1 wave, 2 waves, 3, and depending on how many times it hammers. Now, as it hammers, instead of the waves getting disorganized and chaotic in the tank, they become organized in what's called interferometry. Very complex word to describe that the waves interfere with each other, but in this case, they combine. And the more you hammer it in, the more energy you put into this fluid, which is water, the bigger the waves get. They don't become disorganized. Instead, they just get bigger. The amplitude increases, more power behind them. Now, I'm going to park my mouse over one of the waves, and you'll see that as the waves move, one wave fills in the previous wave's middle point. The peak fills in the previous wave's valley. And as the hammering action carries on or becomes more intense or the amplitude increases, think of it turning up the volume too as another example, that I think this is where the earthquakes are happening, either at the pinnacle or at the valley, at the peak or the valley, and that it's dropping off same-sized earthquakes all the way across the tank. So it's not that one wave is causing the other wave. It's that the waves are combining and going across the whole wave tank, and in this case, the wave tank is the craton. Okay? So now that you understand the craton, now that you understand what I think is happening with the earthquake spreading across the craton, the spots that are getting hit are pre-designated weak points, power lines, high voltage, and volcanic locations that also are drill points where humans are tapping into steam. And they're creating electricity at those spots too. There's some kind of piezoelectric discharge effect that's happening, or possibly coming out of the power lines themselves, going down into the crust. But I think more likely coming up out of the crust where there's greater power, going up into the power lines, creating hot spots in the ground or around areas that are near high voltage power lines, not directly at the power lines, around them by a few miles. And that's all tied together. So we're going to go now look at 24 hours worth of earthquakes. This is the last day. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about with the piezoelectric discharge and blah, 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 go back and watch my other videos over those past several days, and I fully explain it going into last week, or 2 weeks ago, when I put out the discovery or finding on the power lines and the hotspots and the earthquakes all matching up. 24 hours time, look at this. Again, even somebody who's never seen this before should be able to understand that the West Coast has a fair amount of movement going on all the way over to the edge of the craton. over to Wyoming, over to Utah, over to Arizona. And we'll talk about Arizona, the rare quote-unquote earthquake that's there. The only other activity we should talk about is Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is drilled. These are all drill points in Oklahoma. Oil and gas. Mainly fracking. But there is oil production going on here too. Fracking for gas. And some fracking for oil. I think they can frack for oil too. Here's the earthquake epicenter, and we're going to zoom in on something right next to the earthquake epicenter, which is a pad. The pad contains tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines, burn flare-off apparatus, etc., and those are all part of a greater pumping operation for oil and gas. And there's 500,000 different drill points across Oklahoma. Here's the ones I have marked, and for every one I have marked, just look. These little square gray pads in the ground, these are all different oil and gas wells. And it's county upon county that way. Those aren't houses. Every one of these little square white pads is a different oil well or gas well. And every one of these earthquakes is directly next to one of the drill points. So I just showed you a few. You guys can, they're all in a line right next to each other too. So it's spreading again like that standing wave that I just showed you in the tank, but it's a smaller version. It's just across the center portion of the craton. Now let's go over to the west, and we've got to go look up this event down in Arizona. Winslow, West, Arizona, a 2.8. Now, didn't we have something here? Isn't there something here nearby? I think there is. Let's go look. Before I say there is, let's go look. Oh man, yeah. Mesa Butte North, Mesa Butte South, and to top it all off, we're on the edge of the San Francisco Volcanic Field. This right here is the San Francisco Volcanic Field. And let me turn off the photos so you can just see the cones themselves, the lava flows that come off of that. We have craters, really impressive ones, and some older ones that are covered in trees. Now that's just on the lava flows there. The lava flows themselves are covered in trees, but then you get out here into the more desert-like features, Sunset Crater and the others, around the San Francisco Volcanic Field. Now something happened here several years ago where I was chastised across the whole media. People in Arizona, in the news, totally berated me and went off of me. One morning, this is several years ago, well here, let's just go look it up. Dutchsinse. Oh, look at that. How did the computer know I was going to look it up? Dude, how did it know I was going to put that in? I haven't looked it up in a year or two. Wow. Man. That's freaky, guys. Okay, so check it out. There's articles, here's one, where they're ripping me a new one because a steam plume appeared from over here on the east side of the San Francisco Volcanic Field. I made a video on it and showed it. And they tried to say it was a control burn from down here, south of Flagstaff somewhere. And it wasn't smoke, it was steam. And it came from over here on the east side of the San Francisco Volcanic Field. The nearest point was Sunset Crater. So these articles reference my video, and they say that I say that there's an eruption happening at Sunset Crater. And the National Park Service came out to correct me and say that it wasn't anything. Let's see. Do they even have it on here? They don't have it on here? To say it wasn't anything. Here, look, all these sites weighed in on my story. Dutchsinse. They don't provide the video, of course. Let me go get the video so you guys can see it, decide for yourself. 2015, 5 years ago, Arizona dormant volcano erupts plumes at Sunset Crater. Satellite imagery. Let me turn this on HD and full screen. So this is in the morning on the east side of the San Francisco Volcanic Field. You see it. It's not smoke, and it's certainly not a control burn. And they tried to say that it was a control burn from down here. They said it was smoke from a control burn down here, and clearly it's steam coming off the east side of the San Francisco volcanic field. Okay, I mean, it just is. And, oh, whoa, I just knocked my keyboard over there. So the articles that they wrote about me were just insane. But the National Park Service came out and addressed my video. Here it is. Pictures emerged last week of what appeared to be steam plumes coming from Sunset Crater just across the Utah state line in northwestern Arizona had geologists scrambling. Seriously, very minor earthquake shook southern Utah, blah, 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 blah. And then they have the National Park Service statement. So, again, what does that all mean? Well, they freaked out on me for noticing steam coming from the east side of the San Francisco volcanic field, trying to say it was a control burn. Now look, on the east-southeast side of the San Francisco volcanic field, we've got ourselves a new earthquake. And it's right next to Mesa Butte North and Mesa Butte South. Is there anything else of any significance here? It looks like we got some roads. I don't see any huge power lines. I see, again, some roads out here, but there are no power lines along those roads. Again, I would always look within a few miles for these huge power lines. Hold on. Did I just say there were none? Is that? No, that's trail of some kind. Is this some kind of pipeline? Or maybe I just can't see the power lines. No, it would be buried maybe? Old wagon road? What is it? Look, they've got it clear cut all the way out, but there's nothing in it. It looks like something has been buried, and it goes underneath all this. Look, and then it comes back down this way and goes up this way. And it's not a road. Mud flood. Hashtag Tartaria. Oh, wait. Oh, of course. I forgot all about this. Oh, man, you guys have probably seen this on TV. Meteor crater. The Barringer crater. This is the famous crater. Of course. We're right next to the famous crater, too. So not only are we on the east side, southeast side of the San Francisco volcanic field where I saw my steam plume, we saw it all together in the video, but down here we are just next to Meteor Crater. Well, I guess there's probably some fractures in the crust from that, wouldn't you think? Let's go up to the west-northwest point of Arizona where we have another earthquake. It's not like we have a lot of seismic activity in Arizona to report on, guys. So when I get Arizona earthquakes, I've got to mention them to you because of the edge of the craton. One more time. Deformed edge of the craton, purple. Purple goes up back across Nevada to the California border. Where are we? Oh, wait. We're next to Dutchman's Draw. Is this a quarry blast or anything? No, it's at 22.2 kilometers deep. 222. Well, Littlefield, Arizona, there's only one thing here. It's a volcanic field that Dutchman's Draw volcano belongs in. And these all formed when this was underwater, long time ago. There used to be an ancient inland ocean throughout some of these areas here, or at least large inland bodies of water. So yeah, that's right next to it. Is there anything else here? Black Rock Loop, 68 miles. Never heard of it. Got a campground there. Again, we have roads. Oh, we have a quarry, but look, 22.2 kilometers deep. We know the earthquake is down that far. We know it's not related to a quarry at the surface. And they do not have quarries or mines, at least in the United States, that goes down 22 kilometers. Okay, no power lines next to there. That's good. No volcanoes there either, are there? The nearest is Dutchman's Draw. Okay. So I would say 2 volcanic fields for sure hit. Now across Utah, a lot of people asking me what's going on in Utah, what's going on up in Idaho, what's going on at Yellowstone National Park. Well, Yellowstone National Park is the new addition to the list, believe it or not. There are hundreds of tremors every day there, maybe even thousands. Tremors are small vibrations as the magma is shifting down below Yellowstone. But these are actual earthquakes up at the surface, or up above, right next to the tip-top, tippy-top of the magma chamber. But across Utah, let's go look it up. Let me show you what's there. Sunnyside, Utah. Negative 1.2 kilometer depth. We are up above sea level, pretty much right at the surface. But there is something here in Utah. There's the earthquake epicenter. Here's Carbon County right here on the north side. And let me just zoom in on Carbon County right at the north tip. And we have a boatload of oil pumping operations. This is mainly oil, I think. Not too much gas. I mean, there may be some gas going on in there, but it's mainly oil. Goes across the mountains, and it literally goes through the mountains. And on the other side of the mountain range over here, it is absolute what I would call insane overdrive. So I don't know if you'll see it at this level. Let me zoom in and start to point out what you need to look for. All of these little square pads again. Each one has a tank, a pump, a jack, a pipeline. And look how many there are in the mountains here. Now we come out of the mountains. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see it. Those are all oil wells, guys. These aren't campsites or clear-cut locations by people. Each one has like 1 or 2 wells at it. But it goes across over into the valley. It looks like a grid on the ground, doesn't it? I'm not against oil and gas. I'm not. I mean, I drive a Hummer. H3, guys, it gets 20 miles a gallon, but still. You know, again, these are weak points in the crust. That's all I can say about it. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that when you drill that much, you've got to expect seismic activity to come your way, just like a perforation in a piece of stone. But the piece of stone we're talking about here is that craton again. And power or force is exerted into the edge of the craton from the northwest. So that gets me into the northwest. That gets me into the earthquakes up here in Idaho, and in Yellowstone, and in Montana, on the northwest edge of the craton. Look at the craton edge in Montana and Idaho, and where it goes to. It goes right down through the middle of the park at Yellowstone. Now, on the west coast, Washington, Oregon, 1 earthquake, 1 in Washington, none in Oregon, and 1 in Vancouver Island. So let's go look at a different map. Let's go look at the tremor map from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. Okay, this is showing us our tremors as of yesterday. It's always about 1 day behind. Lists 473. Each one has a magnitude assigned to it. But don't think of these like earthquakes. Just like what I mentioned about Yellowstone's tremors, when the magma is shifting, it causes vibrations. These are vibrations too, but it's from the plate shifting. The Juan de Fuca fracture zone out here, off the west coast of the United States, these pinnacle tips of the Pacific plate point into the North American plate, right through the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And the spots where the pinnacle points if I can say that right, where the pinnacle tips point, that's where the tremors are taking place. And going back to the tremor map, look at it. Here and here, Vancouver Island. Down in Northern California, let's compare. Look at Northern California. The plate boundary comes in and goes down to the east-southeast, down through the Bay Area. And this is the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. Up to the north, same thing. We're on the northern arm of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And the activity is going in here across Vancouver Island. Hold on. My cat needs tending. Uno momento. Sorry, guys. Cat break. Everybody get... Hold on. Hold on, Wednesday. Okay, sorry about that, guys. She's going to continue to meow. She didn't want to come in the room, so she's just meowing at the closed door. That's it, you know. Just let me know she's there. She's letting you guys all know she's there too. So we have tremors that are going on across Vancouver Island and tremors that are going on in Northern California. And we're skipping over all of Oregon pretty much. So let's go back and look at the tremor map one more time. Well, if I can get it open. There we go. So this is yesterday. Now, we can go back in time. We can go back a couple days. We can go back to the start of the month. Let's go back like 2 or 3 days. Actually, let's go back 4 days. There we are. So 4 to 5 days ago, we were down in California. We were in Washington pretty much without any activity up to the north at all. But then we go forward. Am I breaking up, guys? Looks like I just lost a connection. If I'm breaking up, I apologize, guys. It looks like I just dropped out a little bit. I'm sorry. This is becoming a distraction. Okay, yeah, I did. I just dropped 122 frames. Okay, no biggie. Just a little bit of a loss. If you guys cut out, it's internet connection problem time. I'm talking about the Pacific Northwest, and I just went onto the PNSN website. That gives them my IP address, which then opens me up for attack from the University of Washington. Okay. Okay, so... Oh, and head of IT. Don't even... Okay. So coming in on the West Coast, going down into California, we have a span of earthquakes in 24 hours' time that, remember what I told you about the standing wave in the tank here? Standing wave in the tank spreading out across the tank. And the same thing's happening across California's plate boundary. And it's all the same sized activity. 2s and 3s, pretty much 2s and 3s, coming in down along the coast. Meanwhile, up in Idaho, on the edge of the Craton coming in from the northwest, that's where the predominant bulk struck, with the 4.0 and 3s striking on the edge of the Craton. So the Craton is trying to absorb that energy and take it across the plate, equalize. Same time, it shifts down to the south, southwest. So that standing wave shifts across the red lines that the USGS have on the map here, the thick red line, which are the plate boundaries. Now, all the thin red lines are marked faults. And guess what? Once energy goes into the plate, it follows many of the marked faults across over to the edge of the Craton. And along those marked faults, many of those reside next to drill points and volcanoes on the West Coast. Enough so that most of these earthquakes that I'm about ready to look up will be coming in next to drill points or volcanoes, with just a few that are striking on actual faults. So let me prove that to you. We'll just pull this whole stack right here. There's 2.8. It's marked as Northern California by the Europeans. And if we look at the USGS, they say Geysers, California. So let's put the coordinates in. There we go. Zooming in on Clear Lake Volcano here, Geyser Peak, and then you'll see these geothermal turbines. These are electrical generating stations that are being turned by steam. The steam comes from drill points. The drill points go down a few hundred to a few thousand feet down into the volcanic field, but it's getting hit with earthquakes, and it's a big stack of earthquakes going up to near 3.0. Why? Energy's coming in out of the Juan de Fuca. It's going down to the east-southeast. You can see the path that the earthquakes are taking, following that thick red line, which is, of course, the San Andreas. So the plate boundary is shifting, and it's all in the 2 to 3 range. Going back up into the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca, where it's 2.9, 2.3, but it's mainly 3.0. Over along the California-Nevada border, it's the same thing. Oh, by the way, once we go down south of this stack of quakes here, we jump across the Bay Area south of Diablo, Mount Diablo. And Pleasanton, California, I can just look on the USGS map here. There's Mount Diablo State Park, south of Concord, just north of the earthquake epicenter. Mount Diablo is an ancient volcano from a long time ago. There's tough to jump on top, and professionals said it was not a volcano for the longest time. Crazy, huh? But following the plate boundary down to this 1.5, Kolami, Cholame. As we'd say here in Missouri, we'd say that's Cholame, Cholame, California. It's Kolami. Oh, Dutch, it's Kolami. I say it, boy. Okay, so here we are. San Miguel, Paso Robles. Anything else here nearby? Let's zoom in and see. 2 intersecting roads, is that what that is? Sure is. 2 intersecting roads. I'm looking for power lines, just in case. But ultimately, we are on the San Andreas Fault. You can see it going all the way down here. It's a diagonal line northwest to southeast. Now, over here to the east, right over here, drill points, and a lot of them. Oil and gas going all the way across the valley, and I've got them marked. I've talked about these so many times. They just keep going and going and going. You can see them. There are these little pads in the ground, just like all the other spots that I showed you previously. Going through the farmers' fields. That's not for water pumping, guys. And it just keeps going and going, and it's just tens of thousands of drill points across the valley here. So the earthquakes tend to go down to where the drill points pick up in earnest. They start up here and go down around the valley right up to the edge of the San Andreas Fault, the drill points. Look how many there are. This is just one little patch along the whole San Andreas. It's huge, the amount of drill points, and it keeps going all the way down to the south. The earthquakes follow that path down to where the drill points start, and then they tend to pick up on the other side of the valley. Now, that hasn't happened today. That's going to happen in the next several hours. We should see new activity pop off in the southeast tip of the valley down here. About the same size, or maybe a little bigger, than what's currently coming down right now. So 2s. Along the California-Nevada border, let's start up to the north, between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. See how it just says Nevada? Let's put the coordinates in. It's not just anywhere in Nevada, guys. Wait till you see. A picture speaks 1,000 words. The earthquake epicenter, first of all, coming in next to a place called Sugarloaf Peak Butte. Here's Reno. There's Pyramid Lake. There's Lake Tahoe. But I want to draw... Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold on, guys. We got a hot spot there right now. Hold on. Is this new? Yes. November 17th. We got a new hot spot right here. Now, let me show you what's in this location. First of all, we have an earthquake there. But to have a new hot spot there is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I'm going to turn off the borders and labels and place marks and draw your attention to this oval shape, the overall oval shape here between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. Oh, look, there's 2 other additional hotspots on the north side of this. So we have 3 hotspots pretty much at the center of this giant oval shape. Now, the giant oval shape is lined with volcanoes. It gets hit with earthquakes around the outside edge and going into the middle. And it gets hit with fires and hot spots in the middle and on the north side. It's happened so many times. It's now again happening again today, right now. It's a good fire pixel. It's got a temperature on it. Hold on. 433 Kelvin, so 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything else here nearby? Wait, what's that? Kind of chicken farm? Greenhouses. Uh-oh. Oregon greenhouses. Oh, man, I could crack so many jokes right now. I could even crack jokes about crack. Ba-dum-bum. So up here, again, we're right in the middle of the giant oval shape. There's a hot spot pixel detected in the oval shape and on the north side. I need to go look at the hot spots on the actual GOES-16 satellite imagery at this point. If you guys want to follow along with me, I'm going to weather.cod.edu. You click on the satellite and radar tab, and we're going to click on shortwave. Oh, wow, hold on. We've got a lot going on here. Okay, we're going to go into a sub-regional sector. If you're following along with me, we're going to start in the Midwest. Then we're going to work our way over to the West Coast. We got something going on right now. Look at this. Dang. Wow. Okay, starting this morning, we have nothing. And then here, just all at once, the power lines start to flare off. The New Madrid seismic zone starts to burst again with hotspots, all the way across it with thousands and thousands of them, or at least hundreds and hundreds, maybe totaling 1,000. So many that, and they're going for 5 minutes at a time. They're bursts of some kind of piezoelectric energy, power lines, or heat coming out of the plate edge on the craton boundary. It's pretty interesting. It usually is accompanied with earthquake activity. So I would think with this amount of hotspot activity going on across the southern states that we would see an increase in seismic activity going on across the same states. So that would mean Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. You need to watch out for new earthquake activity really soon because it's already having an effect either on the power lines or on the plate itself, or both. Now that's just where we're starting with hundreds of hotspots there. Now I'd like to go down over to the West Coast, or over to the West Coast, not down to the West Coast. Over to the West Coast and look up and, yeah, oh wow. Now we've got pronounced fire signatures. It's not just little ones, guys. Big fire signatures on both sides of Lake Tahoe. I need to get this on Natural Color Fire View immediately. Oh yeah, we got fires there. You can see them with the red-orange glow. Let's get in on a localized sector up here in Northern California. So here's one of them. There, right there. And if you don't see it, let me draw your attention to it. It's an orange marker there. This is visible now. The other one is below the cloud cover somewhat. So let's go look back at the shortwave infrared to get a good view through that. Oh, we can't see the other one. No, there is no. You can see it. There's two right there. 1, 2. So that's the two that we just looked at on Google Earth. Right here, 1 and 2. The other is down to the south, which isn't making the current place mark list yet. Somewhere right down in here, south of Lake Tahoe. So let's get back over and look on the localized sector view. Right there, yep, southeast of Lake Tahoe. It just popped up within the past hour. Right here. So within the past hour, major pop-off. And let's go turn on our Natural Color Fire View. There it is. So you can really see that. That's pretty clear, guys. We don't have any storm over the area. And over to the west, maybe along the coast we might. But that's just cloud cover, regular cloud cover, not stormage. Okay, so we have seismic activity at the same time that we have an outbreak of hotspots, which are all happening on both sides of what I think this giant oval shape is, which I didn't tell you yet. This giant oval shape, I think, is the remnant of an ancient supervolcano. On both sides of the oval, we have two basins, Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. On both sides of the oval, we have geothermal fields, Steamboat Springs, here, and up to the north, Pyramid Lake, here. And these are the needles at Pyramid Lake, the pillow lava formations, and the fumarole field that's there. So on both sides of the oval, we've got geothermal. On both sides of the oval, we have volcanoes. We have earthquakes that go around the outside edge and in the middle, and hotspots, and now fires going on. Is that the only spot in California that has actual fires suddenly popping up on a somewhat clear day? Let's go down in Southern California and just take a look. You can see the fire up to the north still. This is visible. I want to look at shortwave. Nothing else across the rest of the whole state. Just these spots up to the north on both sides of our supervolcano caldera. Now, the plate is shifting across Washington and Oregon and Northern California. We have a 4.0 earthquake in Idaho above the deepest part of the magma chamber for Yellowstone, which connects up to the surface at Yellowstone Park, which is getting hit with earthquakes as well. The biggest earthquake of the day, 4.1, associated with the magma chamber at Yellowstone, going down below Idaho. Yes, the magma chamber for Yellowstone goes all the way below Idaho and over to Oregon. It's 11 Grand Canyons in size, and it reaches down 30 kilometers at an angle. At the California-Nevada border, we get down to Long Valley Caldera. This is the confirmed supervolcano. So while I was just telling you about one that I think is one up to the north, and it's getting hit with fires and earthquakes, and it has geothermal on both sides, right here, these clusters of earthquakes here on the California side of the border. Well, here, let me click on the right quake. Yosemite Valley? Yeah, this is right next to Long Valley Caldera, the supervolcano in the region. 1,000 cubic kilometers of melt down below Long Valley. Let me show you where it is in relation to the earthquake epicenter. Earthquake epicenter here, Long Valley here. Supervolcano here, earthquake epicenter there, right next to each other. There's Mammoth Mountain right in the middle point between the two. We have previous hotspots and fires that took place here 2 weeks ago. Huge fires, maybe 3 weeks ago. Just really, really big. That's in Yosemite Valley. Now, if we go due east of Yosemite Valley, where does that take us? That's where the other little cluster of earthquakes is. So here's the epicenter, due east. Look. Takes us in on Mammoth Mountain directly, the other cluster of quakes. Right down here southeast of Mammoth Mountain is where the cluster is. The town of Mammoth, of course, and this is in the middle of the caldera, the supervolcano caldera. And right down in the middle of the caldera, humans have drilled in to get steam to turn these turbines. These go out to the pipelines that go out to the drill points, and the drill points go down a few hundred to a few thousand feet above the magma chamber for the supervolcano. They did not know it was a supervolcano when they drilled in. They've since found out. Over to the east, it's a stepping stone path of 2s, upper 2s, and 1s and 0s, of course, going over to Monte Cristo Hills Volcanic Buttes, across over into the Nevada side. So we jump out of the supervolcano. Let's turn on our borders and labels so you can see Nevada. Here's the state line with Nevada, and we go over here to Monte Cristo. And there's a line of earthquakes going east to west, basically, meeting up with the backside of our arrow perfectly. And that's all happened in the last 24 hours, going across Monte Cristo over to the backside of our arrow, where, if we go over to the east side, we get over to the oil pumping operations that I just showed you over in Utah, and we get down to Dutchman's Draw volcano here, and we get down to Sunset Crater and San Francisco Volcanic Field there. This takes us into Southern California, where we have another diagonal line of quakes. Nothing has changed in the last year and a half since your 7.0 earthquake struck out here in the middle of Ridgecrest and China Lake. The only thing that is somewhat slowed down are the bigger events. You're still getting hit every day with a significant cluster, but not huge, of earthquakes going in a diagonal line from Kozo Volcanic Field down to the Garlock Fault at the Lava Mountains. And I can just show that to you. I'll just show you Kozo and show you the mountains to the south, and you can just connect the line of earthquakes between them yourself. Here is Kozo Volcanic Field where we start. And it's pretty obvious what this is. Geothermal turbines again in the middle of the volcanic field. And they drilled in to get steam. And then a diagonal line of quakes that connects on the east side of all these volcanoes and their lava flows. Volcano Peak and its 10 separate spatter cones. And then going down to the east-southeast. Dead ending into the lava mountains in the Garlock Fault down here. So that line of quakes, it picks up the number of earthquakes and the magnitudes pick up when a push comes in from the north. You've got a new push coming in from the north now. So there's 2s coming down across the San Andreas, mid-range 2s. There's 2s and near 3s coming down as far as at least Monte Cristo and the supervolcano. There's a flow trying to go over to the east. It's saturating everything down into the deformed edge of the craton, down into Arizona, to the volcanoes in Arizona. So I would think, if it's saturating to Arizona, it's getting that far south. I mean, we're parallel to, look, there's the earthquake in Arizona. Look what it's parallel to. The Mojave. So that would mean everything north is being saturated, which means you're going to break, again, in Ridgecrest. So how big? Well, let's just put it into the upper 4 range. 4.9. I'll issue a warning for it. And if it comes in less, well, so be it. And time frame on that. By Saturday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yep, 4 days is what I would watch on that. It's already on its way. 4 days might be overkill. Southern California. Well, the only other noteworthy earthquake of the day, the 3.5. Let's go look it up, shall we? Oh, wait. The Europeans have it at 3.5. What does the USGS have it at? Well, they also have it at a 3. Why didn't that come up at first? That's weird. Let's copy and paste the coordinates. The name should tell you everything if you're a longtime viewer of mine. Ludlow, California, out in the Mojave. Take a look. Look where we're going in on. Well, we're going in on the side of an ancient series of... Well, wait, is that tuftage? That might actually be tuftage. It might actually be an old lava flow. But right next to it. Look, going through the middle of the desert, out here in the middle of nowhere. 1, 2, 3 sets of extremely large high voltage power lines. And it's the only spot across the Mojave for a fairly long distance. We have to go all the way down here to get to another spot where there's power lines. So it's happening right next to it. But look what's right across the highway. I think that the power lines, the hot spots, the earthquakes are all happening in conjunction with each other because, and the volcanoes, because there are weak points in the crust that allow for this piezoelectric discharge to take place. And Mother Nature has already created a weak point with the volcanoes. So Pisgah Crater is a spot where we saw a steam plume. This is how I got my start on YouTube, somewhat. I got a response from the USGS. There was a steam event that happened here and showed on radar. This was back in 2011 in July, on a clear day. Not a cloud in the sky in the middle of July in the desert. And radar was picking up a moisture signal coming from a few mile-wide area, just like a light moisture coming from this area in the desert on a clear day. Go look at the visible satellite, and it's clear. There's nothing there. Just open. So we're watching this moisture signal, and I decided to go look up the location on Google Earth. And imagine my surprise when I zoomed into this and saw Pisgah Crater and a lava flow there. And the steam coming up right next to it to the east, blowing all the way down to LA. It was that much steam. It's coming up. Radar was picking it up. It was spreading out like a fan. And by the time it reached over here, it had dissipated, letting us know it wasn't smoke or anything. Well, the USGS saw my video, and I only had a few thousand subscribers at the most at the time. Again, my channel was like 6 months old, 10 years ago. And they freaked out. Oh, we got somebody at the door. They freaked out. And when they freaked out, they issued a press release about my video, denying that there was anything going on. Furthermore, they went on to say that it was a thunderstorm and that I was mistaken. Now, there's a problem with that. That was day one of the event. They weren't planning on it, neither was I, going on 3 days in a row from the same spot all day and night. By the time day 2 came around, they deleted their press release. You can still go find it from the California Volcano Observatory. But they deleted it off their main page and tried to bury their whole thing about saying it wasn't related to volcano. To top it all off, a few weeks later, I want to say it was like 3 weeks later, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, a 5.0 range earthquake struck right next to where the steam plume had come up and out. Isn't that crazy? So now a new 3.5 strikes out there next to the volcano, next to the high voltage power lines, which again I think is just double weak point. Now the final point on this I want to drive home is Southern California is doing the same thing that everything else that I've told you about on the rest of the planet. There's an equal distribution of earthquake activity across the main San Andreas Fault going down into the Imperial Fault, which technically the San Andreas and Imperial, I think they're the same. They're just two different names on the same fault zones. The thick red line comes down and changes into the Imperial Fault, but it's the San Andreas at least down to this far, down to Salton Sea. But the earthquakes are taking that path up until Salton Sea. And then instead of going around Salton Sea, they take a straight line past it on the western side. Let me show you what's there. Instead of going around Salton Sea, we take a straight line past it. Path of least resistance. And it dead ends down into here, right at the California-Mexico border region. And let's go pull, notice, oh, by the way, the earthquakes are all the same size, just like the standing waves that I showed you previously. Copy and paste. Paste and search. Let me show you what's there. Just like all the other locations I just showed you guys. Look, we're right next to a volcano. Here, hold on, let me back it out. Here's Cerro Prieto Volcano and the Mexican geothermal pumping operations, where they're tapping in to get the steam from that volcano. Now we go up here to the U.S. border, and we have a bunch of our own on this side of the border, right here. Then, solar farms. And I mean big time. Take a look. Major electrical generation going on there. And they have these substations that I think are parked in between them, but Come on, look how many there are. These are all solar panels. And that's massive. I wonder if we can get a street level on that. What? That's what? What? That must be old. Oh, of course. It's old level? Is that what that is? Old street level. Okay. I'm like, where are the solar farms? Okay, they have to update the imagery on Google. They're running 5 years behind. My God. There's a hotspot there to top it all off. I would say the hotspot is related to the solar farm and the electrical generation that's going on there. Now we go down south of the border. Mexico's doing the same thing. We go back up across the LA basin. We have a new earthquake, a 0.8, that's just been reported in the last, let's see, when did this strike? When did this strike? 2041 UTC. So like 20 minutes ago, this 0.8 struck. It just, I want to go look it up. It's such a small quake. But since it just hit, let's go see what's there. It's in the LA basin. Or no, it's not in the LA basin. It's south of LA. Escondido, California. Wait, is that a quarry blast? 3.6 kilometer depth. But it's right next to a bunch of quarries. Look, there's a quarry here. And a quarry here. And the earthquake is in between the two quarries. Maybe there's a connecting fault between the two quarries. Yeah? Let's go look. Let's go look on the USGS map. Turn on the fault zones. Tectonic plates, US faults. Ha, not mapped at all. I bet if they mapped it, they'll find a connection between the two. It's just a guess, but it's a good one. All right, has anything else struck since starting my update? A 1.0 back up at geysers? That's insignificant. Any significant earthquake activity? I do have to check. There are some times where I'm doing a broadcast and a significant sized earthquake strikes. Wow. Hey, speaking of that, check it out, guys. A new 4.1 was just reported up here in Canada. Hold on, when did this strike? 2050 UTC. What time is it now? 17 minutes ago, this 4.1 struck. Okay. And the Canadians are reporting it, but the USGS is not. Why is the USGS not reporting this? Let's go see. Let's go over to the latest earthquakes from the USGS. Yeah, they don't have anything reported out of Canada at all. You know why? You would see a stepping stone path of the same sized earthquakes coming up and going down across the edge of the craton. And the USGS is really against talking about that. They said it couldn't happen. So of course they're going to be against it. When it starts happening, if anything happens that an agency says doesn't happen, they're against it. And they're against talking about it. But let's go put the coordinates in. We're not worried about talking about it. That's what we're here for. They're there to do all the eggheading, and we're here to do all the actual sciencing. It's getting real sciencey here, isn't it? Getting real sciencey up in here. Hey guys, take a look at the edge of the craton. All right, there we are. We are on the edge of the craton, and you can see a line of quakes that goes down, or a line of mountains that goes down, and the quakes follow that. So the interior portion of the craton connects all the way back up to Alaska. Now, wait, is there anything else here? We have a previous 4.2 earthquake. There might not be anything here at all except for craton. I have to look. I have to look for volcanoes, and I have to look for power lines. Now, the chances of there being very large, high-voltage power lines out here in the northwest portion of Canada are pretty slim. Okay, well, now that we've looked and we don't see anything nearby, strictly craton edge, that means a new 4. Oh, wait, isn't that the same size that struck down here in Idaho yesterday or last night? It sure is. It's also a 4.1. It's all the same size, guys. One more time. all the same size coming in out of Alaska, going down into the North American plate by the difference of a few hairs of a point, connecting from the 4.1 that just struck up in Canada down to the 4.1 down in Idaho. And this is a perfect example too. It's not that this 4.1 down in Idaho somehow caused this 4.1 up in Canada, or vice versa. It's not that the 4.1 caused the other 4.1. It's that both 4.1s are caused by an inundating force that goes across the whole plate and saturates the plate across the craton edge. Therefore, we should see similar sized earthquakes elsewhere down along the plate boundary. Oh wait, what's this? Another equal spaced 4.1. But to see the equal spacing, you have to be able to look almost a planet away from the distance of the moon. And you'd have to look all the way down across Central America. It's all 4.1, 4.2, 4.1, 4.2, 4.1, 4.2, 4.1, 4.2, all the way back to our 4.4 that started this whole thing off up on the northwest edge of the whole plate, coming in out of Alaska. So how did the professionals miss this equal distribution? Oh, and 4.9 and 4.9. Again, like a balancing scale with 4.9 in the middle, or, well, 4.8 in the middle. And that's leading us back to where the whole push begins. Whole push begins down below the West Pacific with our deep earthquakes. That hammering action coming in on the underside of the plate that I showed you in this video here. The deep earthquakes hammering in down below the plates, coming up out of the magma, going into the solid plate. So when that happens, when it comes up out of the fluid and goes into the solid, it's just like the crashing of a wave on a rocky shore. While there's a lot of force in the wave when it's coming across the body of water, that when it crashes into the rocky shore, that's when your full absorption of the wave goes into the mass. And it crashes against the shore, and it will pulverize the rock, will it not? Well, in this case, we're not talking about ocean waves. We're talking about much larger, much more powerful seismic waves, but they're not caused by earthquakes. That this is caused by something else. A greater, very low frequency that's vibrating through the magma, coming up out of the plasma core, which itself is vibrating like a giant bass speaker drum every 26 seconds, making a revolution. So, pretty interesting, isn't it? There's a relation between the earthquakes across distances. You can watch the earthquake spread. Hence my warning for Japan, for instance, for Tokyo. People on the West Coast are probably wondering, what are we going to look for? Well, let me quickly explain. We're going to watch out here in between our sets of earthquakes, and we're going to watch here between our sets of earthquakes. What's the halfway point between this and this? Puts us down into the LA basin, down into South California. The other halfway point is here, which is right in the north tip of Vancouver Island. Washington, Vancouver Island, Oregon. The north tip of the Juan de Fuca, where the two middle points are. Both are going to get hit along the coasts. And both are going to get hit by something larger than what's on both sides. So let's just do a quick addition. Let's add the 4.2 plus the 4.0. That equals 4.3. Pretty easy. We have a 4.1 all the way down to the south. So we would look for somewhere in the mid-range 4, something greater than what's on both sides, to strike at the middle point here and the middle point here. The fulcrum points, again, think of a two-arm scale, but we're going along the red lines of the plate boundaries. You don't just connect a straight line, guys. You don't just draw a straight line between Idaho. Although if we did, let's draw a straight line from Idaho down to Mexico. Look at that. That straight line, look where it goes through. I mean, pretty obvious it goes through Arizona. But we go out along the red line for our bigger events to strike. Remember, Arizona is on the purple, the deformed craton edge. It's going to try and take that energy over to the east. East Coasters, everybody! Hello! Wake up! Everybody, wake up!
Hey, everybody, wake up! There's no sense talking now, eh?
East Coast, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit over here right next to Pennsylvania. I would put it at Pennsylvania, Delaware, North Virginia. So right here in the middle, we have DC, the little diamond shape right there, the Illuminati pyramid shape. Illuminati, Naughty. Over here, but I would look just to the east on the edge of the crater. Look, you already saw Great Gatsby's mansion get hit up here off the coast of Massachusetts. You've already seen the northeast move, and you've already seen down to the south move. Now down to the south, we've got the piezoelectric discharge happening along the power grid, if you will, the power lines. I should issue a warning for the south, too. South is also going to be going up to near 4.0. I'd put it down right next to the Mobile, Alabama, or no, north of Mobile, Alabama, up here in Alabama, central Alabama, by the pumping operations at Tuscaloosa. That should also get hit. So these are pretty rare locations we don't normally talk about much. Alabama and up there at Delaware or East Coast at Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Virginia. So it's spots to keep watch. The West Coast, of course, gets hit all the time. The East Coast only when a big push comes across. And that takes me back to where I started the update. Do you guys have an earthquake plan? I ask it all the time, and I mean it. Do you know what to do when an earthquake strikes? You're supposed to take shelter. Oh! Almost forgot. Ozzies! Get your prawns off the bobby. Check it out, guys. You see any earthquakes? I don't see any earthquake. Nothing must have hit. Must have been high and dry. No. If you guys go over and check, the Europeans have been reporting it, but they're falling off the 50 earthquake feed. You had a new earthquake up here on the north side where the tan meets the green. Hold on. Make sure this is on display capture here. Where the tan meets the green up here, you had a new upper 2. You also had a new mid-range 2 over here right along the western coast, and a new mid-range 2 down here more near Perth. That's 3 earthquakes. One at the center, one at the west, one at the southwest. Now, I issued a warning for the center, the southwest, the southeast, and the northeast, and that all of them are going to get hit. Now, we're far north of Uluru. Everybody always corrects me on how to say it. Ulura. Ayers freaking rock. I can't say it right. Don't press me. But right down here. I had warned right there. And it hit more up here. Just, obviously, we're in the same relative province, but it's not exactly at Ayers Rock down here. It hit up here at the north center. So I would think the south center should also move. But come on, we're already moving down next to Perth, over along the western coast, and at the center. The only thing really missing now is down near Adelaide and up here to the east-northeast out in the middle of nowhere. Which is called what? What is it called out there? Queensland. Sorry, Queenslanders. Out there in the middle of nowhere, as we say. Y'all. Okay, this Yankee's getting ready to sign off. I'm getting ready to take off out of here. You can do your best Yankee impersonation. Since I do all my great German and English impersonations. Oh, my Brit fans. Oh, they gotta love me. They gotta love me over there. Guys, I'm gonna come over there. We're gonna go over to the... What's the name of that place? Oh, never mind. Never mind. Tower of London. That's where they're gonna put me. Anyway, it is 3:18 p.m. Central Time. It is the 17th of November, 2020. And you should develop an emergency kit on top of having your earthquake plan, like what you're going to do when the earthquake actually strikes, take shelter. But you should have an emergency kit that gets you through a few days in case anything big happens. So food and water for a couple days. Also, a way to charge your mobile phone so you can have a way to communicate. You may also want a flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, and sanitation. If you require any medicines, you certainly should have that already, extra of that, but put it into your emergency kit. You know, a lot of people don't take the time to put those things in, and that's really essential. Think about elderly, think about loved ones, think about your coworkers even, maybe. Oh, and kids, you might want to take into account that children are going to need a little bit more distracting materials to be put into the emergency kit. So I would suggest if you have children, maybe putting some things in there, because you can imagine what it's going to be like in a disaster when all the adults are clearly panicked or upset and you're a kid. So maybe have a few of those things that would give a kid a little comfort. Maybe even let the kid be involved in what they get to select to put into the emergency kit. Like, if you only had a few minutes to get out of here, Johnny or Janie or whatever, that you could only grab a few toys, which ones would you want to grab? If you couldn't grab them all and you could only take a couple, start getting the kids ready for that now so that in the future, when they're an adult, they're not overwhelmed when they lose all these physical things. You're able to put it in perspective and figure out what you do want to save versus not. Is there anything else I didn't cover? I guess I didn't cover the lone earthquake down here in southern Africa, South Africa. And I did look it up earlier, but a lot of people were reporting that there was intense shaking on this. Extreme intense shaking from people in South Africa. And as you can see with the felt reports, 893 felt reports. And what's up with the USGS covering small earthquakes internationally now? I mean, people used to tell me that the USGS doesn't cover anything under 4.5 internationally. But what's up with that? 3.5. Go over to the origin page. How many magnitudes are they even reporting on this? 3? It's so weird. Again, people tell me that they don't cover under 4.5 internationally, the USGS. Coordinates bring us right in off this tiny island. Now, I don't know the history of this island, but it is lined with a few small towns. Over to the east, clearly we're at South Africa. We're on the edge of the southern tip of the whole African plate, right where I would call this the southern tip or the edge of the southern African craton that goes out to the deformed plain, out to the accretionary belt, the coastal plain. But looking in on it, you know what? It does look like we do have old volcanic features here. Hold on. Hold on. These are old volcanoes. I'm 100% on that. Look at the lava flows on that. Hold on. These are huge. Why don't they have place marks? This should have Smithsonian place marks on them. The lava flows here, you can see. This looks like Mexico almost. Let me show you an example. Let me show you what I'm talking about with this looking like Mexico. I can't believe they wouldn't have place marks there. So, for instance, Mexico has all these, right? This is the Smithsonian place marks. But going across, do you see how many are not place marked here? Let me zoom in and show you. So every one of these in Mexico this isn't a lake bed. These are all ancient small cone, spatter cone volcanoes. There's hundreds and hundreds of them just across this area right here. But do you see how they make up areas they look like they flowed over and out? There. Okay, you see it, right? Okay, so in Mexico now, all of this is volcanic, and they don't have but one place mark for it at the most. And these keep going down to the south. Every one of these is a cone. And they've even they're farming at the center of every cone for the most part. Now going down all the way around the half point of the world, down to southern, that's on the Central American craton edge, by the way. Down here, I mean, there's no disputing it. All across here, all of this is volcanic. That explains all the gold, by the way, in South Africa. It's amazing. Look at those lava flows. So they don't have anything marked, though. They should, though. Each one of these should have some kind of ancient volcanic field place mark associated with it, or it should be named. All right. I'm glad I looked it up. It's on the edge of the biggest volcanic field that I think I've ever seen, that I didn't know existed. The biggest unnamed volcanic field that ever existed. Maybe it is named. Has anything else struck since I've started my update? Man, this is turning into like the longest ever. I'll be back if anything else goes down, guys. Time to wrap it up. Peace out. Much love. I'm going to save this as a video. We're going to put it out over on YouTube.